On today's show, I've got the latest rumors and news about the Dallas Mavericks at the trade deadline, and I have a list of out-of-nowhere candidates, players that could get traded on deadline day, and we go, wait, what? How did the Mavericks get this player? And I'll explain my rationale for all of them on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You're locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show, making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. But the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, leave a 5-star review on any podcast platform you listen to, like the video, and comment anything below. Let me know in the comment section. Make your prediction. Put up or shut up. Make your prediction who gets traded to the Mavericks on trade deadline day. That is Thursday. I'm recording this at about 6:40 on a Wednesday. Wanted to get this one in early. If there are more rumors, I'll record something else. You know how we work here. 5 days a week, Dallas Mavericks coverage all throughout the year. It's insane. Today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Let's talk trades. Oh man, it's one of my favorite times of the year. I was just telling everybody, we had a staff meeting today, and I go, trade deadline day is a holiday for me. And I'm sure for you it is too, where you circle it on the calendar, you think about it. We've been talking about it for what feels like months, feels like. And all of a sudden, it comes to fruition. It happens, and you're like, all right, waking up, looking up, like refreshing all the trade rumors and all that. Like I love it. I've got my tweet deck open on the right. I'm waiting for anything to happen, and anything can happen because it's trade deadline day. Nothing in the NBA happens without a deadline. That's what an NBA GM told us when I did the sports business classroom in Vegas. I did it was like a conference class, and they had a bunch of NBA GMs come and talk to us, and they were like, nothing gets done nothing gets done without a deadline. And that's why the trade deadline is such an amazing day, because anything can happen. Who knows? Yeah, it's crazy. So let's talk about the latest rumors. There's not a ton that has happened. Couple of Pistons trade, couple small trades here and there. Xavier Tillman gets traded to the Celtics, and that one is a little bit interesting for the Mavs because I thought he could be a candidate. He was on my list of players that would come out of nowhere and be like, Xavier Tillman to the Mavericks. Wait, no one really talked about Xavier Tillman to the Mavericks. And then all of a sudden you get, then the Mavericks would get like a backup center. Didn't happen, but he did go to the Celtics for 2 second-round picks. The Mavs do have 2 second-round picks, so it seems like that could be the baseline. Xavier Tillman was a solid player, playing 20 minutes a game for a Grizzlies team. Now they were really hurt and injured, but like a solid backup that had been playing for them. And so for the Andre Drummond market, I think 2 second-round picks hits it. Sounds like the Bulls are asking for more than that. And so I think that's interesting. The Mavericks could be right there in it. If the Bulls decide to accept an offer, the Mavs could get in on Andre Drummond. But it sounds like the Bulls are asking for a little bit more. The other thing, Simone Fontecchio, he was traded to the Detroit Pistons. He was on my list too. He got traded for 1 second-round pick. He's like a 6'8" wing that can shoot the ball well, defend okay, and he was doing, some good stuff for the Jazz. He gets traded for 1 second-round pick, but it's the Pistons' second-round pick this season. So it's like the 32nd pick in the draft. It's a high second-round pick. And so that one is interesting. The Mavs maybe could have matched it with 2, but he doesn't solve enough things for the Mavericks that you'd want to trade both seconds for him. And so that didn't really move the needle for me either. So that's kind of the latest. It seems like everyone's posturing. There's all kinds of posturing and smoke screens going on right now. The Mavs are looking in on 2 names specifically, Kyle Kuzma and PJ Washington. They want to upgrade at that type of a spot, and they're waiting for these teams to the Wizards and the Hornets of the world are waiting for the Mavericks and the Suns and the other teams of the world to cave, to give them more than they should get for these players. There's not a lot of sellers out there. There's not a lot of teams that are, wanting to get rid of talent, that everybody wants to take on more talent. And this is because of the play-in to me. Isaac and I would argue about the play-in for forever, but because of the play-in, we have teams like, the Hawks are not just selling off everything to try and retool, even though they're 22 and 28. You have the Warriors, 22 and 25, and usually you'd be like, all right, well, but they have a chance. The Jazz, 26 and 26 now, and they're at 10th place, and they all of a sudden could be in a spot. The Bulls have convinced themselves that they can win. And they're not necessarily going to sell off everything and start over either, because they have a chance. They've got that play in. They can play for something. And so that's kind of where we are. All these teams, like especially the Wizards and the Hornets and the Portland Trailblazers of the world, they can wait. All these guys that we're talking about are signed for multiple years. And so a Pascal Siakam was not. And so OG Anunoby was not. They had to trade those guys, and they've already been traded. Let's get into the list, though. I wanted to make a list of the players that could get traded out of nowhere, where we go, oh my God, like Christian Wood to the Mavericks. You remember that? Remember that one? We were like, oh, okay. Interesting. I don't know what he really fixes, but all of a sudden it happened. Porzingis for Spencer Dinwiddie. That's so weird. Okay. All right, let's talk through that. Let's talk through that one, right? Like these trades come out of nowhere. The Mavs do move in silence a lot. They're used a lot, I feel like, in the public space of rumors and this team is attached to this player and all that. You know, Mavs were attached to John Collins for a while. All of a sudden he gets traded to the Jazz. You know, it's like the Mavs seem to be connected to all these different players, but then they trade for the ones that they're not connected to. So I tried to come up with a list of a bunch of names. Let's start with some guards. This one might get me in trouble here. DeJounte Murray. I was listening to the Woj pod today, and Woj and Bobby Marks were talking about the DeJounte Murray trade thing, and DeJounte Murray is out in the game that the Hawks are playing on Wednesday night, by the way. And they were talking on the podcast about, you know, what Atlanta could get for DeJounte Murray. And it didn't seem like there was a robust market for them. The Lakers have been in on DeJounte Murray. And the Lakers don't have a lot to offer either. It sounds like, from Woj at least, that the Hawks were only going to get one first-round pick for DeJounte Murray. He's only making $18 million this year. It bumps up then to $25 through $31 million for the next 4 years. But he's only making 18. And so the Mavs could put together something. A first, Hardy, Tim Hardaway, Omax, I guess, if you want to throw that in there. And all of a sudden you get DeJounte Murray with Luka and Kyrie. Does it make a lot of basketball sense? I don't think so. He kind of needs the ball in his hands. But, you know, according to Mark Stein and others, one source close to the process optimistically insisted Tuesday night that the DeJounte Murray deal would send a deal sending DeJounte Murray out of Atlanta has not been extinguished. So they could still trade him. It's still possible. And would it just be one of those wild things where you go, oh my God, the Mavs just got DeJounte Murray? How did that even happen? What, do they want him? He's like a 6'4" guard that, you know, has played next to Trae Young, and it's been mixed results, and he kind of needs the ball in his hands, and he kind of hasn't with Trae Young as much. And he's supposed to be a good defender because he made all defensive team in like 2018, which is now like a long time ago. But he hasn't really been that good of a defender. And so you're trying to figure out who he is. Still a really good basketball player. And he would help the Mavericks. Obviously, he would be maybe one of the best third scorers in the league, like him, Bradley Beal, and there's probably, you know, Porzingis. Like there's a couple others up there. I don't know. It's a wild one where I was like, okay, what if the Mavs just ponied up that first round pick and the Hawks were like, we just need to move on. We just need to try again. And they traded more first round picks for DeJounte Murray, but it feels like his value is lower than when it was when he was on the Spurs. Another name as a guard, and this one's not as crazy, is Marcus Smart. He's wasting away on that Grizzlies team right now. The Grizzlies already seem to be selling off some pieces. Tillman gets traded. Steven Adams gets traded. Why wouldn't they just wait for Steven Adams to get healthy next year? Grizzlies, it seems like, are loading up on some assets. They've got a young team. They've got a really young core. John Morant, 24 years old. Jaren Jackson Jr., isn't he like 24 years old? Desmond Bane from right in the backyard. Like these guys are all super young. Yeah, Desmond Bane 25, Jaren Jackson 24, John Morant 24. Marcus Smart is 29. He's not really on the same timeline. They got him this summer. They traded that first. And so maybe they look at it and go, let's recoup some assets and let's regroup and let's change up what we want to do. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, like up front. Like, why would they do that? They just got him, you know, he's only played 20 games for them. He's missed a ton of games with injuries here and there. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. He's out with like a finger injury right now. He's missing 6 weeks. That was as of January 9th. So he's getting close to the end of that. About 2 weeks he'll be back. And so like you can kind of talk yourself into it if you're the Mavericks. He would obviously be that defender that they desperately need. A Kyrie Marcus Smart backcourt with Luka. It's okay. I can see that. they still need a guy to defend guards. They've tried, Derrick Jones Jr. They've tried Josh Green. They've had varying successes with those two. But $18 million is not, like, the Mavs can put that together. And he's signed for $18 million this year, $20 million the year after that, $21 million the year after that. That's a pretty good contract. And if they're like, hey, let's just recoup some assets for him. It didn't work this year. We tried it, and let's move on. He could be a name. I've got 2 more guards, and then I got a bunch of wings because obviously the Mavericks are looking at wings. I just wanted to name the 2 guards because they were bigger names first. But coming up, let's get into some of those wings. Could they change the game for the Mavericks? Talk about that and more coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Nissan. Nissan has you covered. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? You like to hit the road, and all of a sudden, there's somebody to your left. Oh, man. This is Dallas traffic to a T. There's someone to your left, and they're going slower than you, and they want to get over to the right. And you're just like, instead of slowing down just a little bit, you have to, like, speed up, and you got to push it. Our friends at Nissan have a lineup of SUVs with the capability to take your adventure to the next level. And it's perfect for cities and great escapes. Classic exclusive Google built-in is your always updating assistant on the call for almost anything. So you've got the tech, you've got it. It's made, ready to go. A 12.3-inch HD touchscreen. I've just bought a new car, and it was very important for me to have a big screen in there so that I could see maps and I could see all kinds of different stuff. You got to love that. The Nissan Pathfinder has you covered for room for 8 people, expansive cargo capacity, all that stuff. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. Again, shop NissanUSA.com.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks, everybody, for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of the show, part of the Raccoon Squad. I appreciate each and every one of you that listens to the show every day. Listen to this show. We should have a show right after the trade deadline, whether the Mavs make a move or not. And then Slightly and I will be on for the post-game show. The Mavs play the Knicks. They play a game. It will be after the trade deadline, so there will be no Harrison Barnes getting traded in the middle of the deadline things happening this year. But they do play, so we'll have you covered for the deadline and for the game as well. All right, I'm going through the list of surprise players to get traded out of nowhere. All of a sudden, they get traded, and we go, how did the Mavs get Marcus Smart? How did they get DeJounte Murray? Jerami Grant is my first wing. Now, I know I hear you. But Jake Fisher reported that they're not going to trade, that they're not willing to trade him. Yeah, okay, sure, Jan. Sure. This is not in regards to Jake Fisher, it's towards the Blazers. Okay. Why? What's the point of them keeping Jerami Grant? Wouldn't they want to get off his money? Wouldn't they want to get off his deal and all that? It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense unless they're just holding back for a better offer. Could totally happen. And all of a sudden we've heard for weeks? The Blazers want to keep Jerami Grant, and then he gets traded. How many times have we heard that before? He fits what the Mavericks kind of want in the sense that he's 6'9", he can score, he can get his own shot, great three-point shooter. He would help the Mavericks shooting a lot. The Mavs could send some of their worst contracts. You change Tim Hardaway into a Jerami Grant. Does that change? Like, you take Tim Hardaway and Rashawn Holmes and you change him into a Jerami Grant, I think that helps your rotation a lot. The problem is he's not a good defender at all. And so you're not taking a step forward there. You're just changing what your offense is a little bit. It's less reliant on threes or nothing, and it's a little bit more, you have some more optionality there. The Mavs need that. It's not their number one need, but they do need that. And so Jerami Grant is a name that I think the Mavs could all of a sudden we could wake up on deadline day and be like, Jerami Grant going to the Mavericks. What? Okay. He's not my number one choice. There's, I like the guys they're looking at right now, Kuzma and PJ. I like them both better than him. Even just straight up, like not even considering the cost or anything. He's making a ton of money. This is the problem with Jerami Grant. He's making $27.5 million this year, $29, almost $30 million next year, $32 the year after that, $34 the year after that, and then $36.4 million player option in 2027, 28. And like some of us will be hitting another decade at that point. It's so far away, 4 years from now. That's crazy. And so that's a name though. That's a name that I'm looking and I'm watching for, because there's been so much like, we're not trading him. We're not trading him. All right. I don't believe you. DeAndre Hunter is a name for the Atlanta Hawks. He has not been very good. As I've talked to people that have covered the Hawks and that are fans of the Hawks that I work with, they're like, yeah, he hasn't been great. But we've seen him be pretty good. We've seen him be pretty good defensively. He's making a ton of money too. He's making $20 million this year, 21 the year after that, 23 the year after that, 24.9 the year after that. Ton of money for a guy that's not giving you a ton of production and kind of can't stay on the court, which is why I'm out on him. I'm out. Like, I wouldn't want the Mavericks to trade for him because he can't really stay healthy. He played 67 games last year, 53 the year before that, 23 the year before that, and then 63 in the shortened COVID year, his rookie year, which is actually pretty good. And he has missed he's missed a big chunk of games this season too. He's only played, 27 out of the 50. So he's played just as much as Kyrie has played this season as well. He can be that bigger wing. He's 6'8". He's defended Luka really well in the past. Maybe he needs to change the scenery. He shot the three ball really well, like 40% from three this season on 4 attempts a game, almost 5 attempts a game. That's good. So you'll take the defense and take the 3-point shooting, and maybe he's the bigger wing, and maybe it's a change of scenery that helps him. And that would be the case. It wouldn't be my choice, but the Mavs could probably get him for pretty cheap. Like, all of a sudden you go, all right, let's take Maxey and Richaun Holmes and a couple seconds, or maybe not even the seconds. Like, let's just let him get off the salary. Let the Hawks get off the salary. Wouldn't that be a trade where you go, how did they get DeAndre Hunter for, like, it feels like nothing? The Mavs get more wings and then, don't have to deal with Maxey and injuries all the time. Then they just deal with different injuries. Another name is Rui Hachimura. Rui Hachimura, to me, if you've ever been to Walmart, you know that they have brands that are name brands, and then you have the great value brands. Great value brands is just like it is known as like a little bit worse. They're not. They're probably all the same product, but it's like a little bit worse. Rui Hachimura is great value brand Kyle Kuzma. He does a lot of the same stuff Kuzma does, just a little bit worse. He's making less money, but he's 6'8". He can get his own shot a little bit here and there. He had a good run in the playoffs last year where all of a sudden he was showing some stuff. Not a good run. Maybe he had some good games. Maybe we'll put it that way. He's shooting the 3 ball really well the last 2 years. Last 2 years, he's like, about 40% from 3, shooting about 3 a game. Like I said, he's a bigger wing. He can hold up fine defensively. He's not great defensively, but can hold up fine defensively. He's making just about $15.7 million this year. Maybe like a Grant Williams and Rui Hachimura. Mavs had to throw something else in, Seth Curry. And maybe that's the change. Maybe just a change of scenery. Maybe just like a change that the Mavs need. Or maybe they're part of a 3-team deal where the Lakers somehow do get DeJounte Murray and then Rui Hachimura gets rerouted to the Mavericks in some way and Grant Williams goes to the Hawks or something like that. Or Richaun Holmes goes to the Hawks and the couple seconds go to somebody else. It's one I'm looking at where you go, how did they get Rui Hachimura? Well, the answer is they couldn't get Kuzma and they couldn't get Jerami Grant. They couldn't get PJ Washington, so they decided to go with Rui Hachimura instead. Another name in that same vein. These next 5 names are all the same thing. They couldn't get Kuzma. They couldn't get PJ Washington. What about these guys? Obi Toppin. The Pacers just got Pascal Siakam. So Obi Toppin was playing like 24 minutes a game, and now he's playing 19 minutes a game. So he's dropped off about 5 minutes a game. Still playing a lot more than I actually had thought he was playing. But Obi Toppin, just a 6'9" athletic wing. He's like the Derrick Jones Jr. of power forwards, basically. He's played a bunch of games this season. He, has shot the 3 ball actually really well. That was a big thing that the Pacers fans were looking at, and that, Tony East on Locked On Pacers was talking about. Can he hit the 3 ball? Well, he's shot almost 40% on 3 threes a game with Tyrese Halliburton. You think that would be the same with Luka? I think so. And so maybe you bring him in, just another athlete, another big body. He would come off the bench. Can't really, he's not going to get his own shot. But if the Mavs are going to push the pace a little bit, I imagine him playing with the Kyrie lineups. Anytime Luka goes off the floor, Obi Toppin comes in. And it's Obi Toppin and Kyrie together. Obi Toppin and Josh Green and Kyrie. You're like, okay, and Derrick Jones Jr. Like, okay, here we go. Let's play fast now. Let's move up and down the court. And that's what I could see. This move is not going to change your world. Maybe it just adds some size and athleticism, and maybe that's all the Mavs can do. A couple seconds, and Obi Toppin gets a bigger opportunity, I guess, with the Mavericks. An interesting one. Probably not, but again, these are names that could come out of nowhere. He's also making $6.8 million. It's kind of hard to trade for. It's a little low for the Mavericks in that range. And he's going to be a restricted free agent this summer. So you got to figure out how much you're going to pay him. And that's kind of weird too. The Mavs have done that a couple times. From reports from Mark Stein and others, it doesn't sound like they want to do that for somebody else. Like to try and sign somebody right after you get them. And so coming up, let's get into some more wings and let's get into centers as well. I've got a couple of bigs. You know the Mavericks want some bigs, and let's talk about some of them. We'll get into that and more coming up. Today's episode brought to you by Quiiiz. Quiiiz is daily fantasy made easy. Go to prizepicks.com. See what is available for you. All you have to do is pick 2 to 6 players and more or less on their projections for whatever stat they've got. And they've got all kinds of new stuff as well. You know that with Quiiiz Picks now, demons and goblins are the newest, most exciting way to play Quiiiz Picks. Squares with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You can win up to 100 times your money. 100? 100 times your money. That's a lot. Go to Quiiiz Picks. Again, you just pick the projections. So they've got a couple right now. Like they have the little demons. They're just like little emojis on there. You can just see. There's a Christian McCaffrey one with the green. I guess they call these like the green ones are goblins. Yeah. 0.5 rushing plus receiving touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey. So if you think McCaffrey scores a touchdown at all, you pick that one. You're like, all right. And then you go to Brock Purdy, 199.5 passing yards. All right, I got to pick more on that one. That one has a little green goblin next to it. And then McCaffrey rushing, receiving touchdowns. If you think he's going to get over 1.5 or more than 1.5. So if you think he's going to get 2, you might as well pick the first one and you might as well pick the 1.5. So I'll do all that. I put down $20 on just those 3. I can win 76. If I put down $10, I can win 38. If I put down $100, $380 on that one. All kinds of fun stuff on Quiiiz Picks. Again, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. Use that code LockedOnNBA. It's all lowercase, LockedOnNBA. Prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA. First deposit match up to $100. All right, Isaac, let's get into some more wings. These are the surprise players to get traded out of nowhere that all of a sudden they end up on the Mavericks and we go, what the heck? How did this player end up on the Mavericks? We talked about some wings: Jerami Grant, DeAndre Hunter, Rui Hachimura, Obi Toppin. And let's talk about 3 more. Jae'Sean Tate for the Rockets. I was listening to Locked On Rockets with Jackson Gatlin, our friend, and he mentioned that Jae'Sean Tate could be on his way out, that he may not find just the way that everything is kind of pushed together, the way that some of their wings are panning out. It looks like Jae'Sean Tate's getting the squeeze from that rotation. And so he could be a guy that the Mavericks decide to go get, kind of like, he's not really a bigger wing. What's he actually listed at? Because I remember what he was listed at is not how he looked on T. He's 6'4". He plays a little bit bigger, looks a little bit bigger. He plays the 4 sometimes for them, which is why you're like, that's kind of weird. But he's one of those guys that plays bigger. If the Mavs, if you can't get anybody else, this is again, if you can't get Kuzma, you can't get PJ Washington, you got to add some size somewhere. And they're not getting it from their wings right now. Jae'Sean Tate doesn't really add that, but maybe he's somebody. Again, it's one of those, it didn't make any sense, but the Mavs all of a sudden get Jae'Sean Tate. I'm just calling it. Another name that I did see in some rumors is Otto Porter Jr. He's missed a bunch of games with injury. Like, he only played 8 games last year. He's only played 15 for Toronto this year. He's not injured as of right now. But 6'8", has been to, went to that title with the Warriors 2 years ago. The Mavericks played against him on the way there. And he's always shot the 3-ball well, 40% for his career. He makes a lot of sense with what the Mavericks do. This would feel like the JJ Redick trade from a couple years ago, where you get a guy and you're like, is this guy done? I think he might be done. And then he comes to the Mavericks and go, oh yeah, he is done. But if he's not done, then that's a pretty nice get. The Warriors are missing a guy like this still, a depth piece that, coming off your bench, you feel pretty good about. All right, we still have some good 3-point shooting and some solid defense coming off our bench. Another name on the Grizzlies, I've mentioned a couple Grizzlies names so far, is Santi Aldama. Santi Aldama from Spain. We know him from, we watched him from FIBA, but he's playing a pretty decent role for the Grizzlies this season. He's 6'11", so he's got great size. He can play the 4 because he can shoot the 3-ball pretty well. About 36% the last 2 years. That's pretty good. You'll take that. He can get his own shot a little bit. He can attack. And he's just one of those where you're like, oh, the Spain connection with Luka. And you're like, then all of a sudden you go, the Mavs need some size, and they get Santi Aldama and bring him off the bench. And Then the Dwight Santialdama or Maxi Santialdama, those lineups make a little bit more sense with a little bit more size there. I'm pulling names out of a hat at this point. I'm at the end of my wings forward segment, so I'm just pulling names out of a hat right now. I know they're not exciting to you, but they're names that the Mavs could trade for that would help their depth a little bit. Here's one more that I didn't mention earlier that I forgot. Another forward, John Collins. The Mavs have been connected with him before. You can't get Kuzma. You can't get PJ Washington. You can't get these guys. Maybe John Collins. He's 6'9". He's starting a bunch of games now for the Jazz. Jazz are playing really well. But the Jazz are already selling off pieces. They just traded Simone Fontecchio. Sounds like they might trade some pieces too. We'll talk about another one of those names here in a little bit. He can rebound a little bit. He can shoot the three a little bit. He's a bigger body. You're paying him a decent amount of money. You're paying him, 25 this year, 26.5 the year after that, 26.5 player option the year after that. That's a lot for not enough production at that spot. But the Mavs would get bigger. It's not a great name, but he's playing well in a role for the Jazz, and the Jazz are winning games. You got to give him credit for something. Yeah. Basketball Reference, by the way, just added this whole column for awards, and so you can see which place each player placed in award categories per year. And in year 2, John Collins was 9th for most improved. So good for him. 9th. There's only 8 more players that improved more than John Collins in 2018-19. Those are the wings and forwards. Let me know which one you're most interested in. Let's talk about some centers. This is one the Mavericks have been connected with, but I'm gonna come back to it. Keith Smith reported that the Magic have stopped taking calls on Wendell Carter Jr. Sounds like they're playing. To me, it sounds like they're playing I'm gonna hang up the phone right now and wait till you come back with a better offer. Tim Hardaway Jr. for Wendell Carter. They need some shooting. They need some more offense. They got a couple centers too with Mo Wagner and Goga Batadze that have played decently well for them. They're going to have to pay some of these guys. It's one that wouldn't make a lot of sense. You go, why did the Magic give him? I don't know. Maybe they get Hardy in the deal too and get another guard that they want to try and figure out. Interesting. So Wendell Carter, he would fit with the Mavericks really well. That would be great. He could play with Derek Lively, I think. Couple minutes here and there. We wouldn't play him a lot. Couple other center names. Jonas Valanciunas, he's making $15 million. This is the same as the Steven Adams trade to the Rockets. You go, why did the Rockets get Steven Adams? Well, he just wanted a really good backup. Why would the Pelicans get rid of him? I don't have the answer to that question. Maybe they decide something else. He's only making $15 million this year, and he's an expiring contract. So maybe they just want to get something for him. They think he's going to leave, and they're going to lose him for nothing. That one makes a lot more sense, just asset wise. Here's an interesting one. The Mavs were connected to this name back in the offseason. They wanted to sign him. They wanted to sign him outright, and they had an offer out for him. Naz Reid of the Timberwolves. He's making about $13 million this year, then $14, and then a $15 million player option, so not a ton. And then they also have Kyle Anderson, making $9.2. The Timberwolves have to add some extra scoring somehow. They want to add another guard. They just added Monte Morris as another guard. What if they want Tim Hardaway Jr.? Just a guy that could just all of a sudden win us a quarter, win us a game in a playoffs when our other guys just don't have it. You do Naz Reid and Kyle Anderson for Tim and Seth Curry and a pick, the 2 seconds or the first. Because then all of a sudden Naz Reid is a real interesting piece for you. You could start Naz Reid. You could definitely start Naz Reid next to Derek Lively against a lot of matchups, maybe not all of them. And the Kyle Anderson, he's not been great this year. His shooting has been pretty bad. And so maybe they want to get off that deal. They're going to lose him for nothing. He's making $9 million. That's an interesting one. I'm throwing the ones out that are came out of nowhere. Kelly Olynyk would not come out of nowhere because it is reported and rumored. Tony Jones, I think of The Athletic, reported that he probably will get traded by the Utah Jazz. The Mavs have been connected with him before. Derek Jones Jr. and him were supposed to be Mavericks. That was the whole trade that we thought was Goran Dragic that ended up being, actually it was Kelly Olynyk and Derek Jones Jr. from the Heat to the Mavericks. And so maybe they finally get him. You could do Rashawn Holmes for Kelly Olynyk and the 2 seconds or 1 second or whatever. That works really well. So that's another center name. Mason Plumlee is the last center name I have. I've said this for a couple of weeks now. Daniel Tice has taken that backup center spot, and he's kind of moved out of the way. He was actually pretty gracious about stepping out of the way. And if the Mavs want to add more size, Mason Plumlee is a good one. Pretty good vet the Mavs could add. I got 2 more guard names I forgot earlier too. Markelle Fultz. I've thought about the Fultz for Tim Hardaway Jr. That money just works straight up. Maybe they want to add more ball handling instead of, what Tim Hardaway Jr. brings. The Magic want to add more. I feel like the Magic would have to add to that deal. So maybe the Mavs get a couple seconds in that deal, get some more assets, and then they take those 4 seconds and turn them into a better player somewhere else. And that's how you take the step forward. It's like one of those where it's an asset management thing. And then maybe Markelle Fultz ends up being a really good other guards. When he's not hurt, Dante Exum hopefully will be healthy. When Exum's injured, maybe Markelle Fultz will be healthy. The last one is Chris Dunn. The Mavs tried to get Matisse Thybulle in the offseason. They didn't get him. And maybe they tried with Chris Dunn now. He's been playing really well. He's been playing really good defense for the Utah Jazz too. The Jazz seem to be sellers. He's played about 20 minutes a game for them. And he doesn't really give you a whole lot else. He's actually been shooting the 3 ball really well. Last 2 years, 40%, but he's only taken 1.5 a game. So he's not going to add a whole lot on offense, but if you need to get a stop every once in a while, the Mavs just run into these stretches where they just can't get a stop no matter what. They throw out anybody, and they just can't. Throw Chris Dunn out there, and then let him help stop the bleeding, basically. And I feel like that would make sense. You can probably get him for a couple seconds. Again, this is if the Jazz are just trading off a bunch of pieces and selling off a bunch of pieces and decide they don't really know. He's only making $2.5 million this year. He's an unrestricted free agent in the summer, so maybe they think they're going to lose him for nothing again. It's another one of those. Let me know which of those names is most interesting to you. Let me know if there's anything in the make your prediction. Who do you think the Mavs get in the trade deadline? Guys, thanks for listening to Locked on Mavs.
Peace out.
Boom.